All right, so I think this is rock and rolling. Got my Microsoft Stream thing recording. So what I want to do tonight is first open up a bottle of homebrew. I think it's my last bottle, my West Coast IPA from not too long ago. Let's see, which one is this? I think it's my IPA. It's either that or Munich Dunkel. Let's see. Oh, it's a Munich Dunkel. All right. Oh yeah. Well, that's pretty good either way. So yeah, the purpose of this video here is I've been getting the ball rolling on my kind of my endeavor. I'm 90% sure I'm going to go through with, which is trying to register for and study for and hopefully pass the Advanced Cicerone written exam. Haven't registered for it yet, but I've been doing a lot of preparations, wrapping my head around it. And what I want to do today is kind of go through my first attempt to take a chunk of the syllabus, analyze it, and mentally prepare for what I have to do to properly prepare for this portion of the written exam, and also this knowledge will help in the oral exams and the tasting exam also. Specifically, section number 2 of the syllabus out of 5, which is beer styles, the big elephant in the room. It's kind of the big section, lots of content here. And so what I've done is I've taken a lot of pieces of the syllabus, compared it to the Cicerone level 2 syllabus, kind of did a little PowerPoint here of what I found to be different, to let me know kind of where I have to expand my efforts and knowledge, right? So let's dig right into it. What I have here is my first slide here, taking the outline of the syllabus with the 5 sections. Again, we're only focusing on section 2, beer styles, has 3 sections: understanding beer styles, style parameters, and the big one, which is beer style knowledge. So let's see what we have here. So when we go into this and we go into the Cicerone website, we see that this section, depending on how you analyze it, is about 22.5% of the overall knowledge, right? But it's divided into 3 sections. You'll see written, oral, and tasting. So overall, this section is 17.5% of the whole exam, written and oral and tasting, 17.5%. But then also you're going to have at least one oral exam sit down where you have to use your beer style knowledge. That's where they come out with the 22.5% number. But I'm really focused on just the written exam right now. So I did a little number crunching, and basically this syllabus section will be 23.33% of the written exam. So it's good to know. You kind of see the weights here, what section you have to put your effort into, right? But then dig a little deeper. And then, so basically, let's talk about why this matters. So a passing score of the Advanced Cicerone exam across the whole board, you have to have 80% overall and at least 75% on the tasting portion. So let's dig a little further into that. What does that mean? So for me, knowing I'm not the strongest on the tasting exam side of things, I had to take that exam twice for level 2. Let's just assume I'm just going to pass that one with 75%. Well, how good do I have to do on this written exam? So if I nailed the oral exams, I would have to get a 79% on the written exam overall. If I am halfway, 50% on the orals, which is not so good, I definitely have to get an 85% on the written exam. Let's say theoretically I bomb the orals, which would be pretty depressing. I have to get a 92% on the written exam. So I have to get 80 to 92% on the written exam overall. I just wanted to wrap my head around these numbers, so I figured I'd share that here and for anyone else that is interested in this. So let's proceed down the rabbit hole. So let's go into the syllabus here. What have I seen? So it starts off with some of the stuff that's also on the level 2. You have section A, understanding beer styles. You have to have some knowledge on the historical development of beer styles. And this is literally copy paste from the syllabus, talking about available ingredients historically, the equipment, the water, before they even had technology, but then technology innovations that might have changed the making of beer. Some different countries had different things, implications like taxes and regulations, culture over time, the trends that came and went, and consumer appeal, things that became more popular, maybe beers that fell out of popularity. And then just to be aware that there are 2 sets of guidelines. There's the BJCP, And there's also the Brewers Association, which is not as relevant for the Cicerone exam, but you do have to know they exist. And there is a few examples where you'll have to kind of open up that knowledge and get familiar for a few of the exceptions, which we'll see. Let's start to see where the drift happens. So compared to certified Cicerone level 2 and now advanced, well, what's different? So I've seen that they did throw a little reference on the color section here. They mention EBC. Now, I don't think we need to know EBC. If you know SRM, is probably good enough, but you should be a little more readily capable to do the quick calculation and know it's approximately SRM times 2 for EBC, right? They also mention in carbonation that volumes of CO2, but the grams per liter is also in there, and reference to final gravity. Not knowing it for every style, but knowing a bit more about what does that mean. So anything that's not yellow is something that's apples to apples, identical to the level 2 syllabus. Anything in yellow is something new. And let's continue down the rabbit hole. Section B style parameters, they just talk about the same stuff. Appearance, aroma, flavor, finish, aftertaste, mouthfeel, perceived bitterness. This is all, the syllabuses are identical, so I'm not really going to spend time on this. This is where it starts to get the more wider and deeper knowledge, right? So in the beer style knowledge. The thing that I noticed is different is, sure, you have to know ABV, IBU, SRM, technically for all the styles, but now you need to know approximate quantitative knowledge of the apparent attenuation and carbonation level. So that wording has changed between the CC2 syllabus and the AC syllabus, right? Also, the qualitative knowledge of the flavor profile and all mouthfeel characteristics instead of the very vague wording that was on level 2. So it was a little deeper familiarity of the beer styles you're going to have. And now, instead of basic knowledge of the style's historical development, they got rid of the word basic. So kind of know a little bit more about the beer histories in case there's a question. And here's another notable change. Instead of having to know 3 commercial examples, now you have to know 4. So that's a bit more information that you have to memorize. And now let's continue. Then we start looking at the list of beer styles. So the list in the CC or level 2 syllabus was about 70 beer styles. And let's go through the same list that's in advanced and highlight what is new. So as we go through Belgium and France, most of the beers are the same, but you'll see in the Trappist Abbey Ale section, they've added Belgian single. So that's got to be added to your list of beers to become familiar with. And now we move on to Britain and Ireland. So you'll see several new beers. British Golden Ale, London Brown Ale, a historical beer, Tropical Stout, British Strong Ale. These were not in the level 2 syllabus. Continuing on, we see in Ireland, they've added the Irish Extra Stout. And then now we move on to Germany, Czech Republic, and Austria. So you'll see many new beers. German Light Beer, German Helles Export Beer, Czech Pale Lager, and then also Czech Amber and Dark Lagers. Moving on to the other ales, the wheat rye beers, we have Lichtenheiner and Roggen beer. So these were not in level 2. In addition to that, when we move on to the United States, they've added a reference to American style IPA in the Pale Lager. But notice they also point out this is not in the BJCP guidelines, so you have to refer to the BA guidelines to have the reference for the quantitative style parameters of that style. Now look, we start talking about IPAs, but then there's a whole subsection of IPAs they've added called Specialty IPA. And this entire list is all new beers that were not in level 2. So the Belgian, Black, Brown, Brut, Red, Rye, Session, and White IPAs. These are all new, so we have to expand our readiness to have knowledge of all these styles too. In the Strong Ale section, we have American Strong Ale and Wheat Wine have been added to the list also. And we're not done there. So again, this is also in level 2. Some of the specialty beers talking about novel ingredients, talking about novel processes. Technically, this was in level 2, but I have a feeling that with the Advanced Cicerone, they're more likely to pull some good questions where you're going to have some knowledge on these. Brettanomyces definitely is going to probably be in that exam somewhere. And we're not done yet. because then there's a section called Other Regions, which was there in level 2, but they've added a lot more beers. So instead of just International Pale Lager, you now have the Amber and Dark. They've added the Piwo Grodziski, if I'm not mispronouncing that. And in Scandinavia, they've added Sati, a historical beer. And then a whole new section that was not there at all, the emerging styles. So now we have pastry stout or dessert stout, American style fruited sour, and specifically dry hop pilsners. They did mention 3 examples. So Italian Pils, New Zealand Pils, West Coast Pilsner, and then Australian style XPA and cold IPA. So this is all new in this section of the syllabus. And then it keeps on going. So now we have the non-alcoholic beer trend, alcohol-free beer. So this has been a hot thing. You go to the Whole Foods, you're seeing this everywhere. Trends are shifting a bit. And so this is a topic we have to know about. Have to know about the range of producers, some styles, and commercial examples of non-alcoholic beer. And just like that, we also have gluten-free beer. So again, knowing the different grains that are used, the difference between gluten-free and gluten-reduced. And now, how do you produce a gluten-free beer? So it's going to be produced slightly different. So we have to kind of have knowledge about that. And once again, the range of producer styles and commercial examples for this whole new subsection of the syllabus. So a lot of new content. So let's summarize this. So what have we seen? So basically, the number of beers in scope has gone up. So I could be off a bit, but I'm counting 70 from when I took CC level 2. And let's call it 104 styles, maybe a couple more, depending on how you interpret those lines there in Advanced Cicerone. You have to know more commercial examples, 4 instead of 3. You have to have a more depth of quantitative and qualitative knowledge. And some of the styles are not in the BJCP guidelines, so you have to kind of go read other sources and get familiar with those too. Got lots of studying ahead. And so I took a couple of the samples right from the Cicerone website. And these essays are really insightful to see how the question be worded, and you can kind of get prepared. What would you be expected to be able to spew out? Like what kind of knowledge? And here's a sample essay. They talk about attenuation. They want you to define attenuation and then name 2 styles that exemplify differences. So maybe you're going to contrast the beer that has high attenuation versus low. You're going to talk about how their flavor profiles are different. But then also you have to talk about how does a brewer control attenuation? 2 different ways. And then talk about how those will influence the flavor profile. So you kind of have to know the brewing side to be able to talk about the beer flavor side, right? And then another one. Now this is key. So this is kind of giving insight into, well, okay, how much do I have to really know about a specific style? They give Weizenbach as an example. This is right off the website. They start out knowing, okay, asking you about BJCP quantitative ranges. So you have to know the ABV, the IBU, and SRM. And then this is more falling into the beer history. Restrictions that govern formulation. So maybe the Reinheitsgebot or something. You have to know how are wheat beers, or specifically Weizenbach, restricted by the government. So that's beer history more. And you don't know what beer this question will be about, but so you have to kind of be ready to answer that question for any of the 100 beer styles, right? And now here, describe the profile of the beer, focusing on flavor and aroma foremost. And then sometimes you will still need to talk about the appearance and the mouthfeel. So all those qualitative, quantitative pieces of information that you study might be pulled up in a type of question. You don't know the format. And then once again, 4 commercial examples. And here's the kicker, produced in at least 2 different countries. So you might memorize styles, but they might all be in Germany. Maybe you have to know a producer from another country. So that really complicates how you strategize to memorize commercial examples. And that's all I have in the PowerPoint. But yeah, let me go back to the slide that I think for me matters the most is this one. Again, when I'm thinking about my studying, I'm really going to be obsessed on getting the highest written exam score I can, because I know I'm not the strongest on the tasting exam as far as detecting off flavors, the subtlety of that. I'm really just looking to pass that. I don't think I'm going to nail that one out of the park, so I have to hit a home run with this written exam. So I'm going to continue preparations here. I'm reading books. I haven't really started to hammer the beer style knowledge memorization yet, but I'm just trying to build a strategy. get all my ducks in order here. And I'm feeling optimistic that I'm very organized. So I'm enjoying the journey, so to speak. And I find putting materials like this together helps me wrap my head around some of the details rather than just sit there and hit the PDFs and try to stare at them. So this is just another chapter in this little vlog or whatever you want to call it. I'll put it on my YouTube to keep myself accountable and slowly get some traction in the right direction on this goal. And yeah, hopefully I'll see you guys soon. And I'll be back for another session, probably on another section of the syllabus, or maybe to recap how I've been tackling the studying for section 2 beer styles. But thanks for your time. See you next time. Cheers.